When I was hospitalized for cancer, my son, who was the top student in the university, cheated me out of all the money for the surgery and gambled online to reward female others who were not good enough. He said, I am the one I hate the most in this life because I ruined his life. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to 3 years ago. My son was accusing me with red eyes that I had trained him to be a test-taking machine. Then I would not study anymore. I looked at him coldly and said, every decision you make in your life in the future has nothing to do with me. This time I gave my son the freedom he always wanted to pursue, but in the end he regretted it with tears. In the National Joint Entrance Examination for the second year of high school, my son won the first place again. The news was soon passed on to my ears by my colleagues, and they all praised me. I really envied teacher Zhang for having such an outstanding son. I smiled politely. I used to think so. After get off work, my son's class teacher, Lao Zhu, stopped me at the school gate and said, Teacher Zhang, your Yan wants to go to the liberal arts class. You have to persuade her to change to the science class. For such an important thing as the college entrance examination, interest is not the most important thing. I pondered for a moment. Lao Tzu also said the same thing to me when my son was divided into liberal arts and science classes in his previous life. After hearing it, I immediately found my son and forced him to go to the science class. On the one hand, it was for his future employment, and on the other hand, science was indeed a subject that my son was better at. He did very well in the college entrance examination that year and was the city's top scorer in science that year. With the extra points for the competition I applied for him, he could enter the best school in the country and study one of the best majors. After graduation, he would have a better future. But in fact, he didn't even finish his sophomore year and ruined his life. Skipping classes and dropping out of school was still a light punishment. On the day I was diagnosed with a terminal illness and was hospitalized, he rarely came to accompany me, but at night he took my bank card on the pretext of paying for surgery and then transferred all the medical expenses in it. While I was waiting for surgery on the hospital bed, he spent all his money on gambling on rewarding female anchors. He spent all the 800,000 yuan of life-saving money overnight. When I found out, he smiled and said, Mom, don't you know that I hate you the most in my life? You ruined your child's life. How can you still live? Die early. Thinking of this, I shook my head and said, Old Zhu, he likes liberal arts, let him choose. The child is grown up and has his own ideas. I don't care. After that, I left with a bag of test papers without looking back. At night, I bent over the desk to correct the test papers of the students in the class. My husband Yan Hua called me angrily. Zhang Wan, what right do you have to decide the path of the child without authorization? Yes, you want to say that Yan Yuan is your son, so what? Don't forget his last name. He still has half of my Yan family blood flowing in his body. I interrupted his anger. Come back this weekend and we will deal with that matter. After hanging up the phone, I saw my son Yan Yuan at a glance. He was wearing a school uniform, carrying a black bag, and standing at the entrance with bead eyes. I don't know how long he stood there. Looking at me, his face was full of hatred, as if he was looking at an enemy. Why do you have to interfere with me, even in choosing a science major? From childhood to adulthood, you only let me study. Have you ever cared about my real thoughts? You really make me feel suffocated. I am your son, not a test-taking machine that can only study. I took off my glasses and rubbed my temples. Why are you so excited? Isn't it just a matter of choosing a science major? Teacher Zhu told me that you can choose whatever you want to study without my consent. My son looked shocked, as if I was lying to him. If you don't want to learn, then don't learn, I continued. From now on, every decision you make in your life has nothing to do with me. I said this sincerely. Yan Yuan is my only son. In my previous life, I was very devoted to him. I wanted to control everything and I controlled too much. Because I was the first college student in a rural family, I grew up with many bumps and bruises. So as soon as my son was born, I planned his path in advance. From the beginning of enlightenment, the teachers of each stage of his study were carefully selected by me. When other children were still playing, he was already taking classes and training with famous teachers in the city and participating in competitions. In addition to the tuition fees of more than 100,000 yuan a year, I drove more than 200 kilometers back and forth to send him on weekends. I persisted year after year. I have always felt that it's okay to suffer a little in the beginning. Life is bitter before it's. After all, how can you get the initiative in life easily and happily by lying down? Aren't you just threatening me? My son suddenly yelled, then slammed the door and went back to his room. I sighed, and my son thought I was talking to him angrily. On Saturday morning, the son knew that his father Yan Hua was coming, and his gloomy face suddenly brightened. He happily went back to the bedroom to change clothes, hum songs, and washed up. At 9 o'clock, Yan Hua appeared at the door. As soon as he opened the door, before the suitcase was put away, his son excitedly threw himself on him. Yan Hua also stretched out his hand, and the two hugged each other tightly. My son has lost weight. After they separated, Yan Hua patted his shoulder and took out the gifts he brought from the suitcase: sneakers, clothes, tennis rackets, etc., as well as a mobile phone. The son held the mobile phone with his eyes shining. Dad, how did you know I wanted this? His voice lowered again. The mobile phone affects study, and Mom won't let me use it. I bought it for my son. Why can't he use it? Yan Hua deliberately raised his voice. He is like this. This can't be done. That can't be done. There is a problem, and he only knows how to study every day. Don't make my son stupid. The son sighed. Dad, you are still good to me. What a touching scene. I couldn't help but applaud. Over the years, I have given my son everything I could, but he always feels that his father, whom he only sees a few times a year, is the one who loves him the most in his life. Correspondingly, I, his mother, am the demon in his life and the source of all the misfortunes in his life. I returned to the room with a smile, took out the divorce contract I had prepared yesterday, and put it on the coffee table. Yan Hua, come and sign this. My son was closest to me, and when he saw the words on the cover, he immediately jumped up. Mom, what do you mean? You actually want to divorce my dad? For so many years, Dad has worked hard to make money for the family, and he is so busy that he doesn't even have time to go home a few times a month. After saying that, he turned his head and looked at Yan Hua. Dad, you won't agree, will you? Yan Hua looked happy. Good son, go get Dad a pen. The son was stunned. Yan Hua patted his shoulder. Your mother's personality is not just you. I've had enough of it. What about me? The son suddenly asked. I definitely want you. Yan Hua patted his shoulder. As long as I can win your custody, I'll leave the house with nothing. The son's eyes were red, and he looked at him with emotion. Dad. No, I will explain to the judge. I will only follow you. The two hugged each other again. Yan Hua looked at me with a smug look on his face, as if he knew his son would choose me. I was not surprised at all. In his previous life, my son hated me so much, not only because I was too controlling, but also because of his father's death. 1 month before the college entrance examination, Yan Hua drove the car in the opposite direction on the road and collided with a large truck. The car caught fire and burned spontaneously. When he was sent to the hospital, he was still alive, but it was more uncomfortable than death. In addition to damage to his body and brain organs, his skin was severely burned all over his body. Even if he was rescued, it would be better to die. Finally, I signed the letter of giving up treatment. In order not to affect my son's test scores, I didn't tell him until the end of the college entrance examination. My uncle asked. He felt that he was an unfilial son and didn't even see his father for the last time before he died. It was also from that time that my son completely regarded me as an enemy. He hated me for hiding everything from him. He hated me for not admitting his father's death, and he hated me even more for putting study before everything else in his life. So when I later got a terminal illness, he said I deserved it. Well, I do deserve it. Who made me give birth to such a beast? After watching the father and son laugh for so long, I had to speak up. Stop, let me say a few words. First of all, this house was originally mine. When we got married, your family was penniless and had never had anything. Secondly, I smiled and looked at my good egg, who said, I want your custody. How shameless. Yan, who didn't expect that I didn't fight with him for the custody of his son. He was so happy that he seemed to have won 5 million. My son has been famous for his excellence since he was a child. He has repeatedly won the first place in the city's exams. Outsiders can tell at a glance that he is a top scholar and has a bright future, completely different from Yen, who is illegitimate son. In my previous life, I didn't tell my son about Yen, who was car accident, and naturally, I didn't tell him about Yen, who was unbearable mess. When Yan Hua was hospitalized due to a car accident, I met a woman who came to visit him. The woman brought an 8-year-old boy with her. She pulled my trouser legs tightly and knelt down in front of everyone in the hospital. She said that this was the son born to Yan Hua and him. Yan Hua died, and the family property should be divided into half. No one knows what I went through during that time. I thought Yan Hua had always been at odds with me because of the education of his son and even wanted to divorce. In order to prevent my son from becoming a single parent family, I had always been separated from Yan, who in my previous life and never agreed to divorce. I didn't expect that he would keep a mistress in a golden house outside under the name of an external transfer, and his illegitimate son was already in elementary school. Such a disgusting person is still the best father in my son's heart. In this case, if he wants to follow his father, he can follow him. I will let my son go to his father's new home with joy and pursue the freedom he wants. However, when he finds out that his good father has already had a new wife and a new son without telling him, and he is the outsider in that family, what kind of expression will he have at that time? I am looking forward to it. Yan will play with his son for the whole weekend, until the weekend night when his son remembered to do his homework and hurried back. I was still writing a teaching paper when my son knocked on my door. After opening the door, he asked angrily, "Why didn't you cook dinner for us?" I asked back, "Didn't you eat out?" Yan Hua likes to take his son to restaurants the most. In the past, I often disagreed, thinking that cooking outside wasn't hygienic and only allowed him to eat at home. Every time, even if he came back not long ago, the food on the table was hot. This week, I decided to let him enjoy the time with his father, so naturally he didn't call him. "I have to come back to do my homework," my son said while looking at me, as if waiting for me to go to the kitchen to cook for them. I sat still. "The food is in the refrigerator. You can heat it up if you want to eat." "Didn't you say that doing housework would delay your studies?" he questioned. "It's already been delayed for 2 days. What difference will it make if I delay it for a little longer? Won't you be able to get into college?" As soon as he finished speaking, his son's face darkened. "Just because I divorced my dad, I am no longer your son, and I don't even want to cook a meal. I am your son, but I have to do my own things." I continued, "Everything for you the most." My son looked at me in disbelief. "I hate it. You only let me study, but I don't hate you cooking for me." At this moment, I suddenly understood that my son wanted freedom, and I must unconditionally support what he wanted to do. I must selflessly dedicate myself to doing things for him. If he didn't want to do them, shook my head and said nothing. "Look at you, you are old. Do I care about you?" After that, he slammed the door and left. Yan Hua and I started the divorce procedure. My son seemed to want to bring up this topic several times, but finally chose to shut up. Because my son still had to take the college entrance examination at our school, and my house was very close to the school, he lived with me before the college entrance examination. However, he was completely angry with me. He would close the door as soon as he got home and decided not to say a word to me. I was used to it. Besides, I didn't have to wash his clothes, cook for him, analyze test papers, supervise his studies, and drive him to the training class in the city every. I had a lot less things to do. I also began to reflect on myself. Maybe I did discipline him too much in my previous life. When I didn't realize it, did I really impose my will on him, causing him to become such a person? If I didn't force him to study, would he not have fallen into depravity later? But soon, what happened later gave me a new perspective. Yan Hua said that he only wanted custody of his son, but when it came to dividing the property, he changed his tone. "Although the house we live in now was bought by my parents before marriage, after marriage we took out a loan to buy a ready-made house in the central area of the provincial city for our son, and I used my provident fund to pay it back every month." Yan Hua wanted to fight for this house. He said confidently, "We bought this together for our son's wedding. Now that my son and I are together, the house should be divided. Give it to me." My son also said, Mom, you have already divided the house, so don't worry about this one. Dad said that was his mind. Yan Hua continued, as a mother, you can't even worry about your son's affairs. Although we are divorced, Yan Yuan is still our child. As parents, aren't we doing it for the good of our children? I sneered. Yan Hua, you are used to doing favors with other people's things. Since you are so good to your son, you have worked for decades and saved up a lot of money. You have about 1 million yuan. Why don't you buy another one with a larger space and a better location for your son? Jiang Wan, Yan Hua immediately argued with me with a red face. I also paid for this house. You paid 1/10 of the down payment, I said coldly. According to the investment ratio, I get 90 and you get 10. Is there any problem? Yan Hua exploded instantly. He slammed the table and stood up, blaring at me. Jiang Wan, do you have to calculate everything clearly? We have been in love for decades. How can you be so cold-blooded? My mind went blank when he questioned me. I really didn't expect that he could be so calm and say my lines with confidence. After saying that Yan Hua pushed his son's arm, Xu Wan, you should also persuade your mother. This is your future property. The son hesitated for a moment and said, Dad, whether it is divided between you and Mom, won't it be left to me in the end? That's not necessarily true. Yan Hua whispered in his ear, if your mom finds another one and gives birth to another child, won't you have no share? I looked at them deeply. One of them dared to lie and the other dared to believe. It was amazing. Because of the issue of property distribution, Yan Hua was unwilling to sign. He even thought that I suddenly decided to divorce because I must have someone else outside, so I couldn't wait. So he used a very rogue trick, delaying. He began to avoid discussing property division with me, not replying to messages, and not answering calls. In addition, he knew how to destroy a woman's reputation, spread rumors. Every time he saw a classmate or relative, he would use his usual tricks to accuse me of being such a ruthless woman. The excuse was nothing more than that his son was about to be a senior in high school, and his mother was still having an extramarital affair. Not only did he want a divorce, but he also wanted to embezzle his son's property. On the surface, he didn't say a word of blame to me, but in fact, every word he said was to express the same meaning, that I was ruthless and cold-blooded, and I didn't look like a good mother or a good wife. In addition, since my son went to the liberal arts class, his test scores were not good, so his words were more credible. For a while, all kinds of messages and gossip about me spread throughout the workplace. Even my son's class teacher, Lao Zhu, gave me some advice, saying that this is a critical period for the child, and family conflict should be tolerated and put aside. I was almost drowned by spit. I took a leave and went to the provincial capital hospital to have a full-body physical examination. In my previous life, I died of cervical cancer. In the early stage, no symptoms were found. When I checked again, it was already in the middle and late stages. Not long after, I got my physical examination report this time. The doctor told me that because it was discovered in time, it was now the second stage of cervical cancer. The cancer cells have only spread to the pelvic cavity and have not spread to other places. He suggested chemotherapy first and then radiotherapy, which has at least a 60 cure rate. Holding the medical report, I slowly closed my eyes. Compared with the 10 rate of re-rate in my previous life, this time it was 50 higher, which was still not a relief. But since fate has allowed me to live again, even if it is only 50, I must seize it. Don't say it's too late, the sky is still full of rosy clouds. This time, I must change the ending of my previous life. After opening my eyes, I calmed down my emotions and thought about how to deal with Yan Hua. Since he wanted to play dirty, I would accompany him to the end. On weekends, I deliberately drove to follow Yan Hua several times, but I didn't find that he had a lover and son. It was not until he was hospitalized for a car accident that the woman who came to the hospital to kneel down to me appeared with the child. So where did he hide the mother and son? After returning to school, I saw the actor's name on the list of the science experimental class. After asking my colleagues, I learned that the leaders of the school's academic affairs office at Laozu all thought that Yin Yuan was a top scholar in science. In order for the school to achieve good results in the college entrance examination, they found Yan Yuan undid ideological work several times, almost coaxing Yan Yuan back to study. I was stunned for a moment. The marriage that cannot be divorced, the cancer that cannot be avoided, the love-rent mistress that cannot be found, and the choice of the son. It seems that there is a mysterious force that still pulls everything along the established route. It is said that teacher Zhang is back. He has done so many shameless things. How can he still have the nerve to come to teach us? Yan Yuan is so pitiful. It is said that he doesn't want to read the books after being hit hard. I stood at the door of the classroom and was about to push the door open when a clear female voice rang out. Did you really see it with your own eyes? The other students paused, and a boy said angrily, others said so. Besides, if he had a decent style, how could he be talked about? The girl retorted calmly, you just listen to what others say. If someone asked you to eat shit one day, you will go too. You are so grown up. Don't you have any judgment at all? Teacher Zhang has taught us for so long. What kind of character is he? Do we need others to say, Teacher Zhang taught us this? What kind of personality does he have? Does he need others to tell us? Teacher Zhang has taught us for so long, and our class has the best physics score. Moreover, among so many physics teachers, Teacher Zhang is also the best teacher. The boy sneered. What personality? None am I, Iju. There are 12 classes in the whole grade, and our class always finishes the latest and has the most physics homework. The girl continued to refute, but our class also has the best physics score. Moreover, among so many physics teachers, Teacher Zhang is also the best teacher. The boy wanted to refute, but I pushed open the door, walked slowly to the podium, glanced at them, and said, class. After class, the class representative brought the homework to my office. She was the girl who just spoke for me, a student with excellent grades. After putting away the homework, he whispered, Teacher Zhang, many of us believe in you. I didn't expect to be comforted by my own students, so I smiled at him and picked up a registration form for the physics competition. Qin Miao, I remember that you are very good at physics. This year's physics competition, I need a tutor. Do you want to try? Among all the children in the class, I was deeply impressed by Qin Miao. He was hardworking and diligent. He could always be in the top 10 in the school in exams. But in his previous life, Qin Miao did not take the college entrance examination. Qin Miao lost his mother when he was young. His father was a gambler. He sold his daughter after getting drunk. So Qin Miao dropped out of school in the first semester of his senior year. Not long after, he was found to have committed suicide at home. I will not let his tragedy happen again, just as I don't believe that my life script cannot be changed. Tenlei's eyes widened in surprise. I am willing, but I am worried. There is nothing to worry about, I said. As long as you want to participate, I will definitely train you to at least get the second place in the province. But let me make it clear first. My requirements are very high and very strict. Teacher Zhang, I couldn't ask for more. Qin Miao answered immediately, his eyes sparkling. In my last life, I forced my son to participate in the physics competition. In this life, I asked Qin Miao to tutor him, and I found that the experience was completely different. My son took everything he got for granted, and he was reluctant to teach him more. Qin Miao was the complete opposite, and he even wanted it. However, I didn't expect that in this life, instead of asking my son to participate in the competition, he would come to me on his own initiative. Mom, have you forgotten who your real child is? Yan Yuan stood at the door of the office, looking past me unstraight at Qin Miao, who was doing homework at my desk. I am a senior in high school this year, and you are a physics teacher. You haven't even asked me if I am willing to participate in such an important thing as the physics competition. Do you really have a new man outside like Dad said? He walked towards Qin Miao step by step. What's her relationship with you? Is she your illegitimate daughter? Yan Yuan, saying that he was getting more and more outrageous. My face immediately turned cold. Do you know what you are talking about? Hugh said. I didn't ask you because I know that even if I asked you, you wouldn't be willing. The son immediately replied, you didn't ask me. How do you know I don't want to? I also participated in the physics competition this year. I was stunned. So you want me to tutor you? A trace of embarrassment flashed across my son's face, and he soon spoke viciously. Do you think I can only find you? Other teachers are begging to teach me. Just wait and see how I will trample on the student under my feet during the competition. After that, he turned his head and walked. Soon, Olza came to me again. Teacher Zhang, how come Yan Yuan is like a weight on a scale determined to participate in the physics competition? Originally, we didn't recommend him to participate because he missed several months of classes, and now his focus should be on catching up. This is your own son, Teacher Zhang. If you don't take care of him, who will? Got it. I closed my eyes and stopped talking. Hin Miao is a very qualified student. On the weekend, he didn't understand the question, so he came directly to my house to ask. My home address is not a secret to students. I used to invite students to my house for dinner. Teacher, will I disturb you? No, curiosity is the most precious quality of students. I pointed out the idea of the question and kept him for lunch. When my son got up, he saw this scene. I was cooking in the kitchen, and Kin Kao was sitting at the table in the living room, concentrating on working on the questions. His face instantly turned dark, and he rushed into the kitchen to ask me, Mom, why is she in my house? I was stewing pork ribs, and he said without even looking up, because you said yesterday that she is my illegitimate daughter, so I treat her as my daughter. The son's face turned dark, and he walked back and forth between the living room and bedroom several times. Finally, with a dark face, he took out a stack of test papers and sat opposite Qin Miao. When Qin Miao was thinking, he moved the chair and deliberately made a harsh noise, but Qin Miao was very focused and didn't even look at him. When I came out after cooking, my son was actually inspired to fight, as if he was competing with someone. I suddenly lost my mind. It's the father's fault if the son doesn't teach well. In an instant, I actually felt the weakness growing in my heart. After my rebirth, I decided to have a good talk with my son for the first time. Yan Yuan, Teacher Zhu is right. At this stage, you are more suitable for attending classes in school. You have missed too many classes, and the timeline for the physics competition is very long, which will definitely affect your grades in other subjects. Don't worry, there will be other opportunities in the first half of next year. But my son still just looked at me sarcastically. If this is not a good thing, would you let Kai Mia participate? I just want to go. What's it to you? Can you tie me up? I immediately strangled my short-lived weakness. 3 months later, the provincial physics competition was about to begin. My son and Kai Mia both participated in a short-term training camp, and after the training camp, they would compete formally. However, the night before the training camp, an unexpected accident happened. Yan Hua had a car accident on the way back to his hometown to visit relatives, and now his life or death is unknown. The plot point of the previous life was brought forward. The next second, I saw my son, who was about to enter the examination room, called me. Mom, did something happen at home? I paused and was silent for a moment. My son immediately said coldly, I knew you wouldn't tell me, but I already know that Dad had a car accident last night and his life or death is unknown. I am his son. I am an adult. I should have the right to know. I don't want him to get into trouble, but I can't catch up with him for the last time. A cold-blooded person like you will never understand the relationship between me and Dad. I want to tell you that I won't take the exam. I held the microphone a little further away from my ear and calmly told him the address. No, Thirtito Jafeo Joe, Fei Building 5, Inpatient Department of the Municipal Hospital. The door is not closed. Push the door and go in. After that, I hung up the phone. At this moment, I was sitting in front of Yan, who was bed in the hospital. He was still in a coma. I waited quietly, waiting for a good show to start. Half an hour later, the door of the hospital was pushed open, and a woman pulled a boy and rushed into the ward. After locking onto my position, he knelt down in front of me. A moment later, the entire ward was filled with screams and cries, making the whole room deafening. This was the scene my son saw when he rushed in from the examination room. The woman held the child in one hand and my trouser leg with the other, crying in an ear-piercing voice, Yan Hua, what will happen to us mother and son after you die? Sister, please have pity on us. My Yunzen was only in the 4th grade when my father passed away. Yunzen, come and get out your aunt. The lawyer said that you also have the right to inherit your father's house. My son stared at the woman kneeling at my feet in amazement and stood there stupidly for a long time before saying, You? What nonsense are you talking about? This is obviously my dad's bed. I nodded to my son and greeted him. Come on, meet him. You will meet sooner or later. Anyway, you will be a family in the future. I pointed at the woman who was throwing a tantrum. Do you believe it? Then I pointed to the boy who was still running a nose. Your brother. Finally, I pointed to Yanhua, who had just opened his eyes and looked terrified on the hospital bed. Your dad has woken up too. You are indeed a family, I commented. Now you can. It's all neatly put together. The son and the woman fought in a ball, and he yelled as he fought, You liar, I don't believe it. The fight didn't last long. On the one hand, he was a student who was powerless, and the woman looked weak but had a thief behind her. On the other hand, it was because of Yan Hua. He pulled out the needle and rushed in front of the woman and the child. Don't hit them. It's all my fault. While blocking, he also covered the eyes of the frightened little boy with heartache. Don't cry, son. Daddy will take you to eat fried chicken. The son's fist stopped in place and looked at him, Dad, as if looking at a stranger. Dad, he asked for confirmation. Is this true? Yan, who avoided his gaze, turned his head and glared at me. Zhang Wan, is this all your fault? I knew you were a vicious woman, and for the house, you don't care about your face. After saying that, he jumped up and then raised his hand and wanted to slap me in the face. Because of the fracture in the car accident, he completely lost his balance before he finished this set of movements, and he slipped to the ground as if wishing me a happy new year. My leg. He held his left leg and shouted loudly, I will sue you. You are intentionally hurting me. The woman with the child surrounded Yan, who uncried to the sky. What are you arguing about? The doctor on patrol stood at the door and said unhappily, Pay attention to your manners. Other patients need to rest. Doctor, the woman called him hurriedly. My husband's fractured leg was just crushed. Please help him. The doctor came in, checked for a while, and said, This uncle is fine. Nothing will happen. Don't get excited. He stood up. His eyes slowly fell on my face, and he was startled. It's you, the treatment plan I talked about last time. How have you considered it? Such an important disease can't be delayed. After speaking, the doctor frowned and looked at me. Several people nearby criticized. You can cry out to the heavens for a minor fracture, but why don't you care about cancer, which is such a serious disease? Yan Hua, you are so happy, cancer? Did I hear you right? He has cancer? Doctor, are you kidding? Yan Hua immediately laughed out loud. God has opened his eyes. I will go to burn incense tomorrow and thank the Buddha for letting this woman get cancer. God really helps me. The woman was also very happy. The two hugged each other and began to imagine how to divide the inheritance in the future. But husband, this is your wife's property. Can you inherit it if she dies? If she dies, it will all belong to my son Zhuoan. Then, what about my son Yunzhen? Hey, Zhuoan's is Yunzhen. They are brothers. Yan, who coaxed the woman and immediately introduced them to each other. Zhuoan, come and meet them. You will have a new mother and brother in the future. Before Yan Hua finished speaking, his son clenched his fist tightly and made a chuckle in his throat. The next second, his fist hit Yan Hua's left cheek hard. Enough, the son roared with red eyes. How long are you going to treat me as a fool? Are you worthy of being my father? I actually gave up my exam for you. The father and son twisted together like two beasts fighting each other to the death. I know that the mountain of fatherly love that Yan Yuan worshipped in his heart has completely collapsed today. I walked out of the messy room, and the rest has nothing to do with me. Yan Hua was actually right. This time his car accident was indeed caused by me. Instead of waiting until the third year of high school when he really died in the car accident, it is better to lure the snake out of the hole. It advance and expose his true face. Besides, my body can't support me watching a few jumping clowns jumping in front of me every day. I proposed to Yan Hua to go back to my hometown. For this reason, I deliberately loosened his mouth on the division of property as long as he is willing to go back to his hometown with me to see his relatives at home. I drove the car on the way back. I deliberately bribed a familiar cattle herder to pretend that he couldn't control the cattle in his hands so that they rushed onto the rural road and blocked the road ahead of us. The reward was a place for his child to study in the central school in the city. For the sake of his child, he would of course help me wholeheartedly. Then, in a critical moment, I turned the steering wheel and turned the direction of the collision with the mountain towards Yanhua. I would not let Yanhua die in a car accident, but just make him temporarily unconscious. Finally, I got his mobile phone and sent a text message to all the contacts. I was in a car accident. The situation is very serious. Hugh, quickly bring our son to the hospital to find Zhang Wan and ask for your share of the house and inheritance. There is no need to write more content. After all, people who should see it will naturally come actively, and people who should not see it and have nothing to do with it can also infer what happened from this text message. The dirty water that Yanhua threw on me will eventually fall back on him. Of course, this is not the end. I applied to the court for a forced divorce on the grounds that Yanhua committed bigamy. It is illegal for him to cohabit with another person and have a child while his marriage to me is still intact. Before, I had no evidence, but just now in the ward, they did not notice my phone and placed it high in the corner to record the video. With both witnesses and evidence, Yanhua could not save the situation, no matter how much he tried. He had to divorce, even if he did not want to. When the court's verdict came down, the sick leave application I submitted to the school also came down. Before leaving school, I went back to the school on purpose to hand over the situation of the children in my original class to the new teacher. I thought that the children in the class all hated me after all. I usually had such high requirements for them and was a serious person. As a result, at the last moment, when the class was handing over, the children in the class burst into tears. Teacher Zhang, we don't want you to leave. I will come back. Teacher Zhang, a child who is usually the most outgoing, howled, don't lie to us. We all know that you have cancer and we may not see you again in the future. Teacher Zhang, the boy who scolded me last time, looked at me with red eyes. Hi, I'm sorry for you, Kimaya is right. I am a fool. I only know how to blame you, but I forgot your care for me. After every exam, you talked to us one by one, analyzed the test papers for us, and told us not to give up. Other children with red eyes also spoke up. Teacher Zhang only looks strict. In fact, he cares about us more than anyone else. I went to class while sick, but Teacher Zhang sent me back to recover and used his spare time to catch up with my progress. My grades were so bad, but Teacher Zhang not only didn't scold me, but also gave me reference books of his own choice. Qin Miao cried the loudest. My father didn't let me study anymore. He wanted to sell me for a dowry. It was Teacher Zhang who gave him all his money. He said my father was short-sighted and that I would definitely make a name for myself. This is the first time in my life that someone has recognized me so much. Woo, woo. Amidst the sobbing, I tried to calm down and knocked on the table. Okay, why are you crying? It's not a serious illness. The doctor said I still have a 60 chance of recovery. You are howling like I'm dead. The classroom gradually quieted down, and the afternoon sun slowly climbed over every inch of the classroom and fell on the young faces. I opened my mouth slowly, deciding at the last moment to say something that I wouldn't normally say. Children, there are two kinds of pain, one that makes you stronger, and the other is worthless and just adds to the torture. This is a sentence that Teacher Zhang likes very much. In the past, knowledge changed Teacher Zhang's fate. After becoming a teacher, Teacher Zhang hopes that it can also change you and everyone's fate. At the very least, it can give you the ability to have more choices when you are in the most painful time of your life. After all, exams, especially large-scale exams, are your only chance to stand on the same competitive line with others. In this case, your ears must be calloused, right? When Teacher Zhang was young, his family was poor. If he hadn't studied hard to get into college, he probably wouldn't have the money to treat his illness now, and he could only wait to die. Now, I'm not saying this to sing praises for your current pain. Teacher Zhang also hates pain. But Teacher Zhang understands that pain cannot be avoided or eliminated. If you hate the painful life and painful rules now, then Teacher Zhang hopes that you in the future will have the ability and capital to change them because of this pain and create a fairer future for the next generation and even the next generation. Because our present is what the previous generations have worked hard for. Get out of class dismissed. I went through a long treatment process. When the college entrance examination ended, I successfully fought cancer. No one expected that Xinmiao would eventually win the city's top science award this year. With the extra points for winning the provincial first place in the last physics competition, he can choose any school and major. Time flies, and the story of the carp jumping over the dragon gate is still repeating, but it's a different person. After the results came out, he, who was always calm, called me like crazy to tell me the good news. Should I choose Tingshua or Peking University? He asked Zhu Lai. Tingshua, there is a professor who was my senior in undergraduate studies. His research direction is a national key support project, and there is a shortage of high-end talents. Do you need me to recommend you to him? I want to. Teacher Zhang, I love you. I hung up the phone and saw the message that Lao Tzu sent me. He often sent me messages during this period. Since Yan Hua and I divorced and our son Yan Yuan was awarded to Yan Hua, my son has completely changed. He is often late and leaves early or plays with his mobile phone in class, and his grades have plummeted. Lao Tzu often contacts Yan Hua to manage his son. Yan Hua always agrees with his mouth, but in fact, he doesn't care at all. In order to please his son and stand on his side again, he is always responsive to his son's request. But even so, Yan Yuan often sneers at him. Fortunately, Yan Yuan still has some basics and finally got into college. What is my regret? Lao Tzu said to me angrily, it's not that he can't, but that he could have done it, but he didn't do it. Everyone has his own way of living and blessing, I replied to him. Maybe this is the life that Yan Yuan wants to pursue. Don't joke. You and I know it well. No one doesn't want to have the best life, Lao Tzu said. Thousands of troops and horses fighting to the death. Isn't it just to get a ticket to the top? Children are always innocent, and as their guides, we cannot be naive. People are different. I could only answer him like this. Teacher Zhang, I didn't expect that you really didn't care about him anymore. You can give up on others, but he is your own son. For you women, isn't it the greatest perfection in your life? If your children are promising, you will always regret it in the future. Finally, he sighed and hung up the phone. Later, when I saw Yan Yuan again, he was already a senior. He wanted to study abroad and improve his academic qualifications and asked me for 200,000 yuan. With the current employment situation, it is impossible to find a job after graduating from undergraduate school. Yan Yuan complained impatiently on the phone. I submitted my resume again and again, and those companies rejected it as soon as they saw my school. I didn't give him any money, but I recommended him to Kind Maya's company. Hin Miao started his own business outside in his sophomore year, and now it has grown to the size of a startup company. I told him that as long as he was patient and worked hard, this industry would be a hot spot in the future. As a result, Yan Yuan didn't go at all. Later, I learned that Yan Yuan saying that he wanted to study abroad was just an excuse. At that time, he was addicted to gambling like in his previous life. At first, he only invested his monthly pocket money, but later he gambled bigger and bigger and lost more and more. For people with weak self-control, an instant income of tens of millions can completely change their brains, and they will never look down on ordinary wages again. So he set his sights on Yan Hua. Yan Hua has been working for so many years, and the money has been firmly in his own hands, so of course he refused to give it to him. When I saw the father and son again, they were already on the cover of social news. One was dead and hidden in the refrigerator. The other was wearing a prisoner's uniform and crying bitterly in front of the camera. My father cheated on me when I was a child, which left me with a serious psychological trauma. I failed the college entrance examination because of him, and my whole life was ruined by him. He hadn't hurt me so much at the beginning, I wouldn't have done it. Death would be more of a relief for him. Looking at the live broadcast on TV, I sighed deeply. Kuai Al called me outside the house. Mother Zhang, the New Year's Eve dinner is ready. Come down undeed. I responded and quickly turned off the TV. The living room was full of guests. They were the students I had taught over the years. Every New Year, they would call their friends to come to my house to see me and reunite with their friends. In this life, I no longer have my own children, but my students have become the transmitters of my knowledge and ideas. Isn't this another kind of perfection? The end of the full text.